Okay, so I'm going to try and keep my emotions in check, so to speak, for this video. I don't want to come off as too insanely negative and kind of ranty. I would like to have some kind of positivity maybe emanating from this video throughout, but it is definitely going to be tough because what we are talking about is, of course, the Google Stadia and Google's sort of like Stadia Connect presentation just wrapped up about 10 minutes ago, and it's one of the first kind of pre-E3 events, you could say, happening this week in this last week before E3, which of course kicks off this weekend and next week, and it's very exciting, and there's been a few things happening. There's finally been some leaks and rumors getting out there. Nintendo had a Pokemon Nintendo Direct yesterday, and today we get the Google Stadia Connect, which is kind of a bigger blowout of information on the Google Stadia and a lot of stuff that people were waiting to find out about and start to kind of help understand exactly what the Google Stadia is, what it's going to be offering. One of the big things people were curious about was the pricing structure, and they did give us a lot of that information. And if you can't tell by the intro of this video, I'm not really overly excited by a lot of this, but hey, we're here to just discuss it, so let's jump into that. So right off the bat, I'm just going to give you my honest and real opinion, and it's really not much different than it was when Google Stadia was first revealed a few months ago. I don't really care about this. It's not very exciting to me. And yeah, I think that's kind of it. I just don't really care about this, and I don't think that it's this great, amazing, awesome thing like Google is trying to play it up to be. Now, I do understand that there are people out there who are excited about this, who love this idea, who want to defend it and back it and support it, and people who think that this is the way of the future. And to be fair, you're right. It is the eventual way of the future. I am not oblivious to that fact, and I think even most people who are down on Google Stadia are still aware enough to understand that, yeah, the inevitable future is the direction that Google Stadia is trying to bring us into. So that part is not lost on me, but I do want to make sure that for those of you out there who feel that way, I wanted you to know right in the beginning of this video, I am not a fan. I don't have many positive things to say about this. So if you want, you can just thumbs down the video and just hop on out of the video right now. That's probably going to be best for everyone. But again, I am trying to not, rant like a maniac or a lunatic about this, because one thing that I kind of took away from today is, as bad as this thing is and as uninteresting and unexciting as it is, I think it might be less of a quote-unquote threat to traditional gaming than maybe a lot of us thought a few months ago when it was first revealed. So today we basically saw Google doubling down on the idea of streaming content anywhere, to any phone, to any tablet, to any TV, to any computer or laptop or PC. This is their future. It's all about streamable games, streamable content, a cloud-based future, a lot of stuff that does have some advantages. Even I, as an old fuddy-duddy, will admit there are some advantages to this. And so Google Stadia is just that. And it's going to be launching in November this year, which I think a lot of people kind of predicted. I mean, they did say it was going to be a 2019 rollout for this. And so now we know it's coming out in November. And then, of course, they gave us some pricing information. Now, there's a great breakdown of all the pricing on IGN, and I'm going to just kind of link that article below because I have a few snippets from their article that I'm going to kind of read to you guys from that break it down. This information is all over the place. Google, of course, has it as well. But since I'm citing IGN, I wanted to make sure you guys knew where this is coming from. So when they discussed the pricing and the structure, which was actually kind of near the end of the stream, I found that kind of interesting. They stated that when this rolls out in November, the initial way to get involved with Stadia is through what they're calling the Founders Edition. And this is sort of a package, a bundle package that's going to allow you to get started. And this seems to be, again, the only way in 2019 to actually get sort of initiated into what Google Stadia is. One of the other big things they confirmed is that this is ultimately a monthly service fee that you are paying. The overall service fee monthly is $9.99, $10 a month, the same price as Microsoft's Game Pass, and essentially, in a lot of ways, these are the same sort of thing, to be fair. So, whereas the Game Pass is happening and it's successful and people like it and it's a great deal for Xbox owners, and of course now PC owners as well, now comes Google Stadia with a similarly priced product that offers one unique difference, the ability to stream everything and do all this kind of live hopping into games and stuff. And so that's what they're charging. This is a service. This is not a platform, it is a service, and I'll get into that in a minute as well. But going back to the Founders Edition, this is how you hop in, and you can see here what the Founders Edition is. It is currently available for pre-order. The Founders Edition is going to cost $129.99, and it includes a couple of things. It includes the limited edition Night Blue controller, Chromecast Ultra, something that normally retails for $70, which apparently you do need a Chromecast initially to get involved through this Founders Edition, so that's kind of interesting. A 3-month Stadia Pro subscription, which is what is $10 a month. Your first chance to claim a Stadia name. It is so lame that is the state of gaming that we're in nowadays. And then a 3-month Buddy Pass to give Stadia Pro to a friend. So, oh man. So there you go. That's how you get involved in 2019, is through this $130 package, which includes a controller, and which, by the way, you can use any controller for Google Stadia, but here is the Google Stadia version: a blue controller, a Chromecast that you have to have in order to play Google Stadia, and then a 3-month subscription, and then 2 completely worthless things, one of them meant to just sort of spread the disease, so to speak, of Google Stadia to other people. Now here's a further breakdown of what the Google Stadia Pro actually is. A couple of things stated again here on IGN's article. Stadia Pro is Google's subscription service that players can access as part of Stadia for deals on games, free games, and better streaming capabilities. While the Founders Edition comes bundled with 3 months of it, and 3 free months for another friend, it will normally cost $9.99 per month. Most notably, Stadia Pro will be required to play with up to 4K 60 frames per second HDR and 5.1 surround sound capabilities for your Stadia games. The Stadia base is going to be kind of the further way to get involved with Stadia down the road, and that's going to be available in 2020. And that's where you can stream for something a little bit more reasonable and accurate and available for people, which is 1080p at 60 frames per second. So that's kind of the state of Stadia right now. There's the Stadia Pro, which is $10 a month and lets you just stream stuff. Stadia Base, which is apparently the cheaper and more low quality version of Stadia, that's going to be available next year. And then, of course, get started this year with the Founders Edition for $130 just to get a controller and 3 free months of Stadia for a friend of yours. So there is a lot to unpack here. When looking at their overall presentation, their Connect presentation, it was interesting. I'll be honest, and I'll be a little bit kind here. Overall, as a presentation, it was a solid presentation. It had an E3 vibe, it had a Nintendo Direct vibe, it had an Apple vibe, and overall, to try and translate the information it was trying to do, it did a fine job. During the presentation, they also featured some trailers for some games, including one brand new reveal of a game, which was Baldur's Gate 3, which is pretty freaking cool, I'm not gonna lie. Now, I'm a bigger fan of the Baldur's Dark Alliance games that were like dungeon crawlers, kind of like Diablo and stuff, back in like the 6th gen on like the PS2 and the Xbox. Those are great games, and those are games more up my alley than the old school, like straight up hardcore RPG Baldur's Gate games. But it is cool to see this series continuing, and I thought it was neat that Google got to like show this as a first-time reveal at the Stadia event. They showed like the new Ghost Recon game that features Joe Bernthal. That was pretty cool. They talked about Destiny 2 and all of its iterations is coming to Google Stadia as well, and that's like a huge partnership between Google and Bungie and some stuff like that. So, you know, seeing games is neat and cool, but we didn't really get any indication of anything that's exclusive. And that brings me to one of my biggest issues with Google Stadia is this isn't a platform. It is a service. Like I already said earlier in this video, I even tweeted this as well when this thing wrapped up. All I took away from this is just a service. This is just Google's version of Steam or EA's Origin. Now, to continue to try to be a little bit kind and more positive here, there's nothing inherently wrong or bad about that. Google trying to have its own kind of video game delivery service like a Steam or an Origin, for example, is not actually a bad thing. I can't completely fault Google for wanting to have something like this. I mean, they're a huge tech company. They have the infrastructure and the money, you know, and the clout and capital to do something like this. And, you know, competition is always good. So having something that attempts to compete with something like Steam is also a good thing by default. And so that is neat. I think the thing is, if Google was trying to bill it more as that and not some revolutionary new platform for video games, then it would make a little bit more sense, and I think people might be a little bit more open to like accepting it for what it truly is on the surface. But when you really realize that this is nothing more than just a monthly service and a controller that you don't even have to have because any controller works, you start to kind of break down the flaws in their delivery of this thing. I mean, I still can't get over their first reveal a few months ago when they talked about the, quote, power behind this thing. That drove me up a wall, if I can even speak. It drove me up a wall, and I'm now even more frustrated by this now we've had today's presentation, because it further shows that there is no power. This is not a device. This is not hardware. This is not a platform. This is just a service with a bunch of servers streaming internet data to you whatever device you're using for a monthly fee, just like Netflix, just like Game Pass, just like the internet service you're already paying for anyway to have in your house, or your cell phone service even. That is all this is. But they are trying to make it seem like something more, and something more revolutionary, and something that is this amazing Google proprietary thing. And it's like, I mean, unless there's still something more that they need to show us, as far as I can tell, it's not that. It's not that big of a deal. It is a nothing thing. Now, these points are also why, as I alluded to earlier in this video, it makes me realize that this, I think, is less of a threat to traditional gaming, simply because it's nothing more than another Steam-like service. That is the only thing that this thing is. And a couple of months ago, when it was first revealed, I did sort of see it as a threat to traditional gaming, because I do know that it's a huge step towards the all-digital future that we all know is coming, and many of us, yes, old fuddy-duddies like me, are not excited about. And so when I see that this thing maybe is less of a serious jump in that direction than I initially thought, it makes me kind of pull the brakes back and realize, okay, like, this is just what it is. It's probably not going to make this huge splash in the technology and delivery of games the way a lot of us might have been worried about. And so if it just exists as its own thing, then it's almost harmless. I can say I don't like it and I'm not interested in it and will not experience it, but I can also say it's harmless, and so it existing for the few people out there that are going to want to play with this and want to enjoy it, then it's fine. I'm all about options for people, so I don't want to necessarily restrict the option of what Stadia is offering for people who want to play their games that way. In a world where Stadia isn't necessarily damaging the gaming industry or damaging traditional home console games, then I don't care if it sucks, because to me this thing kind of sucks. It's like, cool, there's going to be some people that want to buy into this, and that's great, and so I don't wish failure on companies, I don't wish failure on people, and I definitely don't want something to fail to the point that jobs are lost. So if Stadia can exist harmlessly in its own little bubble, I don't really care. Now, they did talk a little bit of tech stuff that, as you guys know, a lot of times goes above my head, but a lot of this was pretty basic. They just broke down what your internet speed connection needs to be to get different versions of and quality of streaming, which to me more exposes the flaw in this, because streaming is just dumb to me, streaming games, but that's what Google Stadia is. And you know, it seems to match up just fine. Even the lowest quality they showed was like 720p at 60 frames per second for like a base level kind of not very good internet connection. And it's like, is that really a problem for anyone? 720p at 60 frames per second, that's a pretty decent video game experience. So if that's really true, then I'll say props to them. I mean, hey, I'll continue to be positive where I can. That's, to me, not so bad. If I cared about this and I was interested and I was like, cool, I want to stream my video games, but I'm worried about the quality, if I were to have seen this breakdown, I would have been like, you know what? That's fine for me. I'm not this crazy 4K resolution dude. Like, I don't need all that crazy stuff. It's just not how I think about playing my games. As long as it looks fine and it plays fine, that's all I care about. And to me, you know, having crappy internet giving me still 720 at 60 frames per second for my games, that would satisfy me. I know a lot of you guys out there won't agree, but for me, I'd be like, that's just fine. I did find it interesting, however, tell me if you guys noticed this, how they didn't really spend a lot of time talking about the jumping in and out of games feature of Stadia, because if I'm going to be real with you here, the only thing that actually is kind of interesting to me is that aspect of what they promised back when they first revealed this. I admitted even then that technology is cool and it is neat. And I do think it's pretty interesting to see that technology is getting us to that kind of point. It, again, does not appeal to me. It is not something I want to experience or even care about, especially because a lot of it's based on watching someone like streaming a game on Twitch and then jumping into that game. I don't do that. I don't watch people stream video games. I don't watch live streams of games. It's just not for me. And I don't like streaming video games, and I don't like digital stuff. So the whole thing doesn't appeal to, it would never like come into Rob's home as a gaming experience. But I did think it was neat technology. And I know that they're still going to do that, but today they didn't really touch on that at all. They didn't really feature more of it. And in the same video presentation where they're discussing pricing, I really wish that they went more in depth into that and maybe showed it actually in practice, in use in some way. But they didn't do that, so they completely avoided that aspect of Stadia, at least as far as I could see, which is kind of disappointing. And so, to kind of get to wrapping this up, when we go back to looking at the pricing and everything, it's like for $129, you can buy the Founders Edition and you can start playing video games for $10 a month, okay? Or you can buy just the $10 a month thing and you can start playing video games. Or at the very end, they also said, if you don't even want to pay for these services, you can just buy your games and play them on Stadia. And so, once they said that, I was like, what are you guys even talking about? You completely nullified the reason for this existing in the first place. It's like, pay $10 a month or pay $130 to play video games, or pay $0 but pay for your video games anyway. It's like, what the hell even is this? Once that happened and I tried to add this up in my brain and I realized I couldn't add up this whole business model in my brain, that's when I went to, this is a nothing thing. This is a nothing product. It's a nothing anything. It's just a service. And it's a service you apparently don't even need. It's like, I guess I get the idea that if you're paying for the monthly service, you're streaming games the way you would like Netflix or even like Game Pass. And if you don't do that, then you're just going to buy your games outright. But don't most people want to just buy their games outright anyway? I mean, okay, I'll be fair. Game Pass is appealing to a lot of people. They do like the idea of just $10 a month to play any game. But who cares? I mean, I don't know. Who cares? I'm not even using Game Pass. I just don't. None of that stuff interests me. If I don't own my game, it has almost no interest to me. So whether I'm streaming it or I'm accessing it through a monthly service, whatever. And so all the messaging got really confusing with Stadia at the end here when they brought up this fact. And to me, I realized that there's no real buy-in proposition. I don't really understand what the benefit to buying is here, unless they really went into further detail about the ability to jump in and out of games that you're just watching on YouTube. Like, that to me is the closest thing to any sort of sellable feature or worthwhile buy-in proposition I've taken away from either of these two presentations, and today's entire presentation didn't touch on that. But they still wanted to ask you for your money. But then at the end, mentioned you don't even have to give them your money. And so what the hell is Stadia? It is a ghost product. It is a nothing. It is just a service that to me doesn't seem to have any real value. And so, yeah, that's it. I'm a mean old negative cynical fuddy-duddy because I don't care about this digital future and streaming games. And so I see no benefit to this. It is not exciting. And yeah, so I guess I'll just wrap this up by saying, again, I don't wish failure on anyone. I don't want Stadia to quote unquote fail. I just don't want it to take off and push gaming towards this all digital future that no one really cares about and no one really wants, or at least very few people want. So I don't want people to lose jobs because this thing would fail. That's not what I'm asking for. I do enjoy the fact that it seems like it's not a huge threat to gaming, like I already said. And so hopefully it exists in its own little bubble and it's just fine. Anyway, I do want to hear what you guys have to say. What do you think about Google Stadia and all of this stuff from today? What do you think about my opinions? Am I just a crazy old curmudgeon in your eyes that just is trying to resist the inevitable future? Or do a lot of my arguments make sense? Do you understand my complaints? Do you agree with them? Are you down on Google Stadia? If you support it, if you made it through this video just to yell at me because you disagree, I mean, hey, talk about it below, man. I want to hear, hopefully, a compelling argument from people with good points as to why this thing is even worthwhile. Because right now, the way I see it, I just don't really care. It doesn't seem very exciting, and I don't really know what it is even supposed to be. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Discuss it below. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Ro2R, and I'll catch you next time on another video.